Welcome to a Supply Chain Institute online resource. The supply chain is all around us, continuously sourcing materials from manufacturers through production stages to get all kinds of products to their final users all over the world. The supply chain is intricate and complex, implicating assets, individuals, transactions, organizations, and data everywhere and at all times. The world is changing faster than ever, so supply chains are evolving to be agile. They can't rely on long-term strategic plans anymore. Instead, they are committed to rapidly reconfiguring themselves. One helpful capacity is the ability to model and simulate the supply chain under a variety of conditions to predict how well it will perform. Companies can then use such valuable information to proactively adjust. But that's easier said than done. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So here it is. Really simulating the supply chain will teach you to model the supply chain bottom up. It is the first part of the simulation series. It will be available for free on our YouTube channel in English and Spanish. The course is composed of 5 blocks. Today, we will visit the DC's inbound flows. As I mentioned in the course welcome, the simulation software we will be using in the course is Flexim, which you can download from flexim.com. Let me know in the comment section if you need any help getting the software up and running. So I'm using version 20.1.1 and we'll create a new project. We'll use the units as they are. And so here it is. DCs are exciting. We will start by preparing a very unautomated inbound flow. So we will do a first pass to layer 1 of the inbound processes of our diagram. Yeah, that includes the unloading of product and put away. We will probably save the inspection for later. Let's start our material flow by creating flow items. So go to your library to the left and drag these two objects, are called sources. Please double click on the source and let's configure it. We will select pallet as a flow item class. And to make sure that we receive pallets as soon as possible, we will choose arrival schedule from the arrival style and type in maybe 20 pallets. Press OK. And we need boxes to create a loaded pallet. Box is already a default option there, and we could use a schedule too, but on this time I'm gonna select the inter-arrival time so that they are not created all at the beginning. And we will tweak a little bit here the inter-arrival configuration by keying a 2. Don't worry about the rest of the syntax. We'll deal with that later on. And so now that we have our product, we want to make sure that we combine them into one loaded pallet by using the combiner object. I'm going to go from the basics. So we have to create some flow here. And that's why we use the A key, either on the screen or by pressing on the keyboard. And we are going to create flow from these sources into this combiner. So these snap to grid really gets into my nerves. So I'm going to go to my view settings and I'm going to uncheck the flag that says snap to grid. I'm going to move more freely that way. Okay, so this combiner, what it does is it can stack our pallets. So I'm gonna stack 20 boxes on each of the pallets. As you saw, I was able to configure that over there. And what happens after we have pallets? Okay, so we're gonna start with the flow. Every time you build something, make sure that you run it and you see what happens, because oftentimes the results will not be intended, and so you might want to take a step back and rethink what you've done. So it works perfectly. Um, so I'm gonna say that we have a palette over there. So we're gonna create a materials receipt. How do we do it? Okay, so we unload the palette from that combiner into a queue. So go to the menu you have on your right after clicking the queue, and we're gonna change the size of the object. I'm gonna use 8 and 3. Okay, so I'm gonna give it any shape. I prefer to go the other way. So as you see here, you can change the location of the object, the rotation of the object, and also its size. You're gonna encounter this panel very often, but I'm gonna move it to my left. I think it's really reducing the size of my working space, so I'm gonna make this menu a composite menu just by dragging it from the right to the left. And from here, I want my pallets to be taken. Remember, we are creating a DC, so I'm gonna send them directly to a racking location. So I can choose what kind of rack I want. This time I'm choosing the gravity flow rack. So I pull it from left to right. I'm gonna double click and just gonna make sure that it's a little deeper and that it's 2 meters high, each of the levels, so that at least they can fit some pallets in there. I'm gonna work with the rack a little later on. So let's build some flow between these items right there. So let's see what happens. And remember, you can change the speed of the model by adjusting this dial. So I'm able to build pallets right now. I'm not very comfortable with my rack, so I probably want to change that in a minute. So let's see if we're able to actually do some batching. And after it accumulates 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Oops. I might want to batch 10 instead of 20 to make sure that the flow is a little bit swifter than it was right now. I can choose what speed I want to run the model here. So okay, so we did batch the product here, but we're gonna use the random level and we're gonna make sure that we have enough space for the pallets, at least visually. We're gonna have 2 slots per bay so that pallets can fit in there. Only 5 levels. All our startable slots, 5 bays. It's okay. 5 levels. And the slot width is gonna be 1.6. So it's gonna be a pretty big rack. Let's see if it's gonna be pulling my product. and doing it correctly. There we go. But there's something that's rubbing me here in the wrong way, because of course it's moving instantaneously from one place to the other. So I might want to add a person that is doing the work. And we do this by connecting the origin to the resource that we want to use with a special key, which is S, center port. And as you can see, if I do this, so I reset my view rotation, I can see that, okay, so we have three different kinds of connections and ports. We have the inbound, the input port, it's called input. We have the output port. All of these both of these work for flow, material flow. And I have a center connection over here, which is both a different shape and it's located down here in the bottom. This one is going to be used for messaging and using resources and doing all other funky things. So it's not going to work unless I actually configure here this as a, with this flag, I tell the combiner to use a transport. And I don't want you to bother with the other variables over there. I'm just made sure for the moment that somebody is carrying the pallets from one place to the other. Okay, and I might want to do the same from the buffer to the rack. So I'm going to do that, just that. And remember, it's a two-step thing. You first connect the center port, and then you make sure that this use transport is selected. And now I'm going to talk about this. It says that it's going to send to the first available port. Of course, it's an outbound port. And it's going to be using a transport. Okay? Who is going to be using a transport? So here it says current. Flexim uses the word current to always refer to the object we are configuring. Remember that one, because you're going to be using it a lot. And after that, it calls on certain other variables, attributes, or stuff from that object. And in here, it's saying that it wants to send the product to the first port available, and it's going to be using the transport connected to the center object number 1. So if you see here, we only have one center connection to the buffer. So that's why it's going to be working correctly. If that number said 2 and I only have one object connected here, it's not going to work. And we're doing this routine run to make sure that everything is working properly. And well, we have some material flow over there. It's being batched 10 by 10. So now we have received all 20 pallets. And with my right button, I'm able to rotate my view. So we haven't saved the file, and that definitely wouldn't be good news to lose the file, because we have put some couple minutes in there. We're doing inbound, and it's my version 0 of the model. And I used an underscore here, and you will understand why. Anytime you perform a pretty big change on the simulation, I recommend that you use the auto increment save. And please look at the name of the file. If I use the auto increment save, it's gonna go to version 1. So I recommend doing that in case you do some interesting changes. In case something fails catastrophically, you can also always go back to the last version that was working. We have completed the first pass on the inbound flow of our DC simulation. We will be building the model using a layered approach. From something that looks like this, to a way more detailed version both in process and visuals. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next video where we will continue to build some serious simulation skills by creating an inspection process, by using the process flow functionality, separating flows of different SKUs, and making our storage a bit smarter. Next time, we will continue with block 1, simulating the DC, and we will finish building the inbound flow. This is really simulating the supply chain, your best source for simulating tutorials and references. I am Enrique Elizaga, Head of Simulation Projects at Supply Chain Institute, and I'm very excited to help you become a simulation expert. Cheers! Acid strength.